Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if this is the first time you have stopped by, hi, I'm Em, and this reading vlog that you're about to see is a little bit of an experiment. It's something I wanted to try out, see if this type of content does well, if people are interested in consuming this, watching this, reading these types of books, or if maybe this is just like a very specific me thing where I can just like slip one book into a vlog here and there. So, but you already know what you're in for because you saw the title and you saw the thumbnail, so I'm assuming if you're here that you also really love nonfiction and are interested in some of these books that have come out in the recent months. So if you didn't look at the thumbnail, hi! We're going to be reading new-ish nonfiction in this reading vlog because there have been a bunch of really cool nonfiction books that have come out in the last 6 months. There's a lot of what I think is really cool nonfiction slated to come out in the next couple of months. I could have put 10 books into this vlog. There are so many nonfiction books that I want to read, whether they are scientific or medical or political or history or memoir. Like, I feel like it's just nonstop. Like a waterfall of nonfiction is raining down on us right now, and I am here for it and I love it. So I hope you are also excited for this vlog. I read a lot of really good nonfiction, if I do say so myself, and I'm really excited to share them with you and to hear what you have to say in the comments. And yeah, so I guess without much further ado, we're just gonna dive right on in and we'll flash back to past Emily and start off this vlog. Okay, it's March 1st, and I was a little unsure what audiobook I wanted to start with, but on the beginning of the month, the ALCs for Libro.fm are made available, and because I work for an indie bookseller, or an indie bookstore, I have access to the bookseller ALC list, and Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green is an option if you're a bookseller, and this book has definitely been on my radar. I've read, this camera's a lot heavier than I thought it was gonna be. Just a minute. I thought I could tough it out, but not so much apparently. Is that okay? Oh no, it's crooked. So my relationship with John Green as an author is that I have read The Fault in Our Stars. I read it in 2011 when I was pregnant with my twins, and don't recommend. It was not a fun time. And then I haven't read any of his other stuff because The Fault in Our Stars was so emotionally devastating, but I read the Anthropocene reviewed his nonfiction when it came out a few years ago, and I absolutely loved it. Like, it was a 5-star book for me. I enjoy him on social media. I enjoy his personality just as a human. I think we have a lot of similarities in our personalities and in the types of things we're interested in, and I know he's really passionate about advocating for tuberculosis and for having a cure for this disease that just kills so many people worldwide every single year. And so I've been really anticipating this book, and so I decided to start it on my walk to the gym this morning, and I'm already 66% of the way in. So this is a shorty for sure, and I'm loving it so far. He's narrating it, which he did for the Anthropocene Reviewed, and again, because I enjoy him so much on Instagram, like the audiobook experience for me is pretty positive. And this is like what is it? You know when there's the title and then there's like a subtitle underneath it? My brain is, I'm hungry and I worked out, so my brain is not firing on all the cylinders right now. But the tagline, the subtitle, the whatever, is The History and Persistence of Our Deadliest Infection. And that's really what this book is John Green walking you through the history of tuberculosis, or consumption as it was called in the 1800s, and just its history globally. And the anchor for this story is a boy named Henry who has tuberculosis that John Green met while he was touring a hospital for tuberculosis patients in Sierra Leone. So Henry is our anchor, and then from there, John Green is teaching us about tuberculosis, which I'm gonna be honest, everything I know about tuberculosis, I have learned from John Green. So it is like just appropriate that now my deep dive is being led by John Green. But he is so thoughtful in his writing, and you can tell this is a subject he cares so much about, and he's really careful to make sure that he is not whittling Henry down to only being someone who has tuberculosis. Like, he is giving a full color account of Henry and his childhood and his life and the life of his family and his mother and his experiences, and how tuberculosis is just so devastating and so painful, and for no reason. Like, we could cure this if we wanted to, and just the powers that be choose not to. Enjoying. I'm learning a lot. Which for me equals enjoyment when I read nonfiction. So yeah, we're off to a good start so far. I finished Everything is Tuberculosis this morning while I was at the gym, and I really, really love John Green writing nonfiction. I think he's so good at it. I think his care and his passion and his urgent desire for everyone to know the things that he knows really comes across and makes this really powerful. And I think he did such a clever job of structuring this book because, you know, he starts with Henry and he really connects you with this boy and this part of the world where tuberculosis affects so many children and adults and families and just the whole culture. And yet, even though it's this really widespread disease, it's so stigmatized and getting care is so hard. And people are devastated at a tuberculosis diagnosis, not because of the disease itself, but because it's so stigmatized. He has a story in the book about a woman who, when she was diagnosed with tuberculosis, cried and said she'd wished it had been lung cancer because lung cancer, she's not going to get the same negative response from her community. And there's just so much guilt and shame and moralizing that comes with getting a tuberculosis diagnosis that is wholly unnecessary and untrue, but because of our lack of understanding of diseases and bacteria and viruses and medicine from, you know, the 1800s and the early 1900s, as in worldwide, our viewpoint hasn't changed very much. And he talks about how slow the research is to adjust from what it was in, you know, as the 1950s even, that we just don't adapt and we don't change and we don't prioritize finding new treatment because it primarily affects poorer countries, and that we've seen with COVID-19 how quickly medicine and research and treatment can progress when it affects rich populations and white populations. And it's so good. I highly recommend. And because he starts with Henry, you get such a personalized view of what this disease looks like with a real person in a real world context. It's not some, you know, far off hazy thing. Like, he gives you a real person to care about and fall in love with and want the best for. And the fact that this disease is just is so prevalent in his world. So I appreciate how he starts with that and then builds up your knowledge of this is the history of tuberculosis. This is how we've treated it in the past. This is its social and economic and political influence in the world. Here are famous people throughout history who have had tuberculosis and who have died from tuberculosis, like John Keats, all three Bronte sisters, people that everyone is going to know. And maybe you won't know every person he names, but you're going to know at least one person that he names. And as a society, are romanticizing of tuberculosis, even while it's also being vilified as a disease, and the people who contract it are being ostracized. And then he goes into how many inventions we have because of tuberculosis. I'm not going to go into all of them, but he mentions the Stetson hat, that our traditional cowboy hat was created because of tuberculosis. We have Adirondack chairs because they were created for people who are in sanatoriums for tuberculosis. And so yeah, it's just the title's absolutely correct and he is absolutely correct. Almost everything circles back around to tuberculosis. So highly recommend, 5-star. It comes out on March 18th and I really hope you either buy it, get it from your library, listen to the audiobook, something, because it's really fantastic. I'm currently battling the desire to take an early afternoon nap. So let's talk about The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates, which I finished last night. Well, let's see if I have the words to talk about this book, because I don't know if I can succinctly recap this for you. This started out to be a book about writing, and Coates was going to be modeling or paying homage to George Orwell's book that's called Politics and the English Language. But on his way to trying to write a book about writing, he wrote a book about our connections with each other and to the world, and how that can be reflected in writing, I think. I think that's my best, like, if I was gonna put it in one sentence, I think that's what this is. Part one is him talking about writing, just in general. Some of it is in second person and some of it is in more like first person memoir narrative type of style, like you would read in a traditional essay, but he switches to second person periodically throughout this book in a really interesting way and in a pretty impactful way. So he does start off the book, part one is about writing, and then it leads into him going to, I think, Senegal in Africa and talking about perceptions of blackness there and the origins of the slave trade. And then part two is about he's going to South Carolina and he's talking about book banning, and in particular like his books that are being banned, Between the World and Me in particular, and his relationship to his different books and what his different books mean to him personally. And then the last section of the book, which is definitely the biggest chunk of the book, is him going to Palestine and talking about the relationship between Israeli and Palestinian people and how it mirrors the relationship between white people and black people in southern United States, and in especially Jim Crow era southern United States, which was really interesting, especially because I just finished reading 100 Years War on Palestine. So like it was an unexpected overlap to read these two books so closely together. I would say, like, not that you should only pick one of these, because I thought 100 Years War on Palestine was so in-depth and really knowledgeable and really informative and educational, and I feel like you could like almost get like a primer of the history of the different wars in Palestine from the message, and then if you wanted a deep dive, move on to the 100 Years War on Palestine. Yeah, I think that's probably the order that I would like recommend reading them in, because I feel like this one did a good job of giving you a primer or like an abbreviated version, and then this one goes super in-depth throughout 100 years worth of history. But I enjoyed this. I liked the writing. This is my first book by Coates, even though I've had We Were 8 Years in Power on my shelf for a long time, but this is the first one of his I've picked up, and I did like his writing a lot, and I liked his reflections. I liked what he had to say about the current state of our world and political powers and how we can use books and writing to relate to each other and to understand where we're coming from. So yeah, definitely recommend. It's a short book. It was a quick read, quick listen, and hopefully this will springboard me into picking up more of his work sooner rather than later. Hello, it's been a couple days since I last updated, but I'm ready to start another nonfiction book. I'm also in the process of making breakfast, so bear with me. I've been trying to decide what nonfiction book I want to read next, and I definitely want to stick with the theme of reading newer nonfiction because I think that is more exciting, both for me and hopefully for you. You are also a nonfiction reader, because I think there's like a lot of really exciting nonfiction books coming out pretty soon. So we have a couple choices. Peak multitasking. Oh, first of all, it's Friday. I have the day off. I don't have any Friday classes for the month of March. So I dropped the kids off at school. I went to the gym. I did my run for the day because Friday is a run day. I did sprints. I use that word loosely. I am a very slow runner, and I have very tender knees that got upset very easily, so slower is definitely the way to go for me. I don't mind it. But so when I say sprints, my sprint was like 5 miles an hour. It's a slow sprint, but I just want to work on, I don't necessarily feel like I need to increase my speed, but I want to like, I don't know, I feel like it's also good for me to every once in a while like push myself to go a little faster. So I was doing 36-second sprints and then doing like a real moderate jog for like a minute and a half in between. And I'm so sorry if you're like, lady, I didn't come here for the running update. You're getting one anyways. It was good. And then I went to Walmart to pick up some like obnoxious things, like new pants for my 9-year-old because they've outgrown everything. Everything is now hitting like above their ankle. Okay, I can focus now because the eggs are made and I just have to wait for the sausage to come out of the oven. So let's talk. Here are the choices. The choices are, neither of these books are out yet. One is almost out and the other one comes out in April. So I have Ordinary Time, Lessons Learned While Staying Put. This is by Annie B. Jones. Annie B. Jones owns the bookshelf in Thomasville, Georgia, which is an indie bookshelf, an indie bookstore. And she has a podcast called From the Front Porch, On the Front Porch, From the Front Porch. And I used to listen to the podcast all the time, but Annie reads wildly differently than I do. And so just in an age of being like inundated with book reviews and book podcasts and videos and all the things, I just slowly stopped listening because her reading taste is just so wildly different from mine. But I love her social media for the bookstore. It's so good. Like when I am in a rut with social media for the bookstore I work for, I go and I look at the bookshelf's Instagram to like get inspiration and get like a creative kick going. I'm interested in reading nonfiction from her. And then the other one I have is called Abundance, and this is by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. And I listen to Ezra Klein's podcast off and on, but I get a lot of value out of what he has to say when I do listen. And this is the one that comes out next week. And it says it's a once-in-a-generation paradigm-shifting call to renew a politics of plenty, face up to the failures of liberal governance, and abandon the chosen scarcities that have deformed American life, which I'm very interested in. So, because I have the day off and the kids are at school for the next like 6 hours, I'm leaning towards this one because I also have the audiobook for this from Libro FM. It was an ALC for the month of March. And just with the news and how much it sucks and how stressful it is, I think right now this might be a good counterbalance to that, to be a little bit more hopeful. And then I can also listen to audiobook because I need to clean the house so bad. And then I can sit down and read Ordinary Time when I have a little bit more like sitting down time. So we're gonna go with this one for now, but I will be reading this one next. Pinky promise. Pinky promise. Okay, I vacuumed and sprayed down the couches, so I'm gonna let those dry, and I should probably shower myself, but I want to finish the intro, but I've already gotten to a part where I was like, oh, hi, there's light. So I'm still in so something I want to talk to you about. I'm still in the introduction, and they're talking about how far right blue states shifted in the 2024 presidential election, and the theories for why, and just talking about largely where Democrats have failed in their communication. Not inaccurate, but there's this paragraph that I thought was like kind of just like a perfect phrasing of the problem. So it goes, the problem is not just political. Young families are leaving large urban metros so quickly that several counties, including those encompassing Manhattan, Brooklyn, Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, are on pace to lose 50% of their under 5 childhood population in the next 20 years. Democrats cannot simultaneously claim to be the party of middle-class families while presiding over the parts of the country that they are leaving. And the other lead up to this has been talking about how it doesn't matter really if you're in a red state or a blue state. Like, it's talking just about how like unaffordable it is becoming to live in a blue state. Like, I live in a blue state. Well, I live in a mostly blue state, but that could always swing either way, any election. But it is expensive to live here. And I do know a lot of people that are moving to states that happen to be red states, but also happen to have a lower cost of living. So I definitely think that's like a very real thing to think about. So I just thought that was a worthwhile thing to like sit with and think about. So I'm gonna finish listening to this intro and then shower, and hopefully I will not feel the need to come update you too much and read you quotes. But yeah, I just really appreciate how thoughtful in general Ezra Klein is, but also how thoughtful he and Derek Thompson have made this book so far, and I'm just in the introduction. I finished Abundance, and of course there's a part I want to read to you that I was listening to it at the gym this morning, and this just made me kind of stop and think for a minute. A lot of this book has made me stop and think for a minute, but this one especially. They're talking about the development of penicillin, and just reflecting on the progression of penicillin as being like between the initial discovery and then being actual medicine that is widely produced and distributed throughout the United States specifically, since that's what this book is about. So I'll just read the whole paragraph. Making technology useful often means building it at scale. For many decades, however, U.S. policy hasn't taken this lesson as seriously as it should. After World War II, the American approach to innovation has been to throw money at the initial eureka moment, sporadically support its development, and then watch idly as the technological frontier moves to other countries. So I'm not sure when I'm going to rate this. I don't think it's quite a 5 for me, but it's definitely within the 4-star range. It's just whether it's a flat 4-star or like a 4.5. I really loved how Klein and Thompson broke down different parts of different sections of American government and processes, and really showed like how having a scarcity mindset has hindered us and what could be possible if the approach government took to certain areas improved. So so each chapter is kind of divided up by a thing, and so there's a chapter about homelessness and like how that could be eradicated if we were able to produce affordable housing, and their primary examples is California and how California is handling or not handling their homelessness crisis. And then how Houston produces houses and has like the lowest houseless population in the country. And then they talked about transportation and medicine. They talked about the creation of the COVID vaccine. It's a pretty broad scope that they're looking at. And the reason I think it's not really a 5 for me is because I don't know what the forward momentum is after reading this book. Like, I love the ideas. I love what they have to say. I love what the possibilities could be if we had different government and we had different regulations and the systems were set up differently. But like, I don't know how we get there from where we are currently. I mean, especially as a country where the US is currently. And I'm definitely at a place in my nonfiction consumption where if I'm going to read a political book, and I would say this is definitely like politics based, especially with how like the US is set up and how roads are built and how houses are built and all the infrastructure we have in place. Like, I would say this is definitely like a political book because politics affects all those things. But when I read a book like this that is taking on something that is currently going on, I want the author to at least propose a solution, and I don't know what the proposed solution is, because I don't think Democrats or liberals are set up to champion these ideas, and I don't think conservatives or Republicans care to champion these ideas. Like, I don't think they care enough about people to want to champion these ideas. I mean, I would love to be wrong. I just don't see how we get from where we are right now to here, but I would love to get to here because I love this alternate reality or a possible future that Klein and Thompson have set up for us. So I do think this is ultimately a hopeful book, but it also made me really sad. Yeah. This comes out on March 18th. I thought the audiobook was excellent. If you listen to Ezra Klein's podcast and like his vocal quality, he and Thompson switch off on chapters, and it was like listening to just a really long podcast episode, and it was really well done. Very thoughtful, very thought-provoking. It's almost like anti-dystopian, but also very frustrating because, like they said in the book, U.S. is really good at the invention, but we're not good at supporting the inventors or the ideas after the invention part. We're not good at the follow through. Also, we spend so much money to build houses compared to other countries, and I don't understand why. And also, like, rail systems. Like, they're talking about how much it costs the US, like in California, to build 1 kilometer of rail versus what other countries pay. And I just don't understand why? It just also kind of highlighted how broken our government is in so many ways. And not just like broken because of like, depending on your like political leaning, just broken. Full stop. So I'm gonna have to sit with this for a little bit before I pick up another nonfiction, because there's a lot to think about in this book, but I definitely do recommend if you like political nonfiction. Alright, it's time for me to give you an update because I am like 40% in, and if I don't update you now, then I will have finished this book before I give you an update. So this is a collection of essays that Annie B. Jones has written. I got a little nervous reading the foreword by Emily P. Freeman and then reading Annie B. Jones's like foreword at the beginning, because they kept referring to these as stories, and I got nervous that it was going to be short stories instead of essays, but it is essays, so that's good. I've tabbed a few things. She spends the first part of the book writing about friendship and the struggle of making friends and keeping friends as everybody, due to life circumstances, whether it's a new job or going to school or getting married or what have you, like people go in and out of your life, they move and things change, and how hard that is as a human. And she had this really great line about staying, so this is all about staying in your hometown when everybody else moves away, and just the habit of staying instead of going off to adventure. And when a lot of us are younger and we're teenagers or really young adults, we dream of, oh, I'm going to move out of my hometown and I'm going to go to this big city, especially if you don't live in a big city already, and I'm going to do this, that, and my life's going to be so cool. It's going to be like, a movie or a TV show, and that's not how it is. A lot of us just end up staying. And while I do not live in my town that I grew up in, because that sounds horrible to me, I'm not far away. Like I live less than an hour away from the town I grew up in. My parents still live there. I go to visit them all the time. I did leave, but I didn't really. All 3 of my closest friends have lived in the town we live in their whole lives and have never left. So this is like a concept I have some familiarity with. But she has a lot of really great things to say, I think, in the beginning about friendship and the effort it takes to maintain friendship. The first section is about friendship. The second one was about the choice to stay in your hometown or really close to your hometown as everybody is leaving, and how painful that is to watch everyone go. And then the part that I'm on right now is about her faith, because she's, I think, would call herself a Christian, but has always kind of struggled with church environments. And I'm not religious, but I find other people's examination of their faith really interesting. It's always a topic that I'm drawn to, because I don't have that steadfast belief in an entity. I'm always really curious about other people's devoutness or commitment to a faith. So I don't know that section would have universal appeal, but I'm enjoying her questions. And there's like a rogue hair somewhere in my glasses. Anyways, just checking to see if my husband was home yet. Anyways, I am liking it a lot, but I couldn't tell you if it's an unbiased appreciation or if my history with watching Annie B. Jones like on the internet and listening to her podcast and like the familiarity I have with her as a person on social media, like if that fondness lends itself to me enjoying this book. So I'm not sure yet, but I'll keep you updated for sure. But yeah, this is really lovely and it's short, so I'm hoping to finish it today, and if not today, definitely tomorrow. I finished Ordinary Time, and as you can see, or maybe you can't see, I used page tabs, like the metal ones instead of the paper ones, and I feel like they're a lot harder to see. But I ended up tabbing a few things that I really liked that Annie B. Jones had to say. We went on, when I updated you, I was in the faith section, and then we went on to another section where she talked about her family, like being an older sister of a younger brother, and how there aren't a lot of stories told about brother and sister dynamics. Most of the sibling dynamics that are written about are sisters, and I could see where she's coming from. She definitely has a point. And then about marrying her husband and them meeting and what their relationship is to each other, and then her journey with motherhood, because she is childless and she had like an interesting journey to getting to that place. And then the last section is kind of like a mishmash of things, but is ultimately about like her current life and the staying put in that. So I thought this was really lovely. I'm not sure what to rate it, because with memoir, I tend to either give them a 5-star, or if they don't feel like a 5-star, I just don't rate them, because putting a star rating on somebody's personal life experience feels weird. So it wasn't quite a 5-star for me, but I really did like it. This is kind of my favorite type of memoir or autobiography. Like, while I love a celebrity memoir, I really like random person who's not famous, who's not super wealthy, who's just like going about living their life, and these are the things that they found out about themselves or about life in the process. Like, that's my favorite type of memoir. So I did really like this. It was a quick read. I imagine if Annie B. Jones does the audiobook, that the audiobook will also be really good, but I'm just guessing because I didn't have access to an advanced copy of the audiobook. So I just read it with my eyes, but it was a really fast read and I did really enjoy it. So that brings us to the end of this video. I do have a quick bonus book that I'm not going to talk too in depth about, but I did read Abortion, Our Bodies, Their Lies, and the Truths We Use to Win by Jessica Valenti, kind of like in the background, and I did give this 5 stars. So if this is like an area of nonfiction you're interested in, I do highly recommend this, but that's just like a bonus entry. But I am going to wrap up this vlog. I have a couple superlatives though. Like, if I had to pick from these 4, one that absolutely everyone must read, I would say Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green is the one that everybody should read, because I think this is a topic that doesn't get talked about enough in mainstream discourse, and I think we can all stand to learn more about tuberculosis. If you are going to listen to one of these on audio, I would say either the John Green or Abundance. I thought both of these audiobooks were really, really good. I also think Abundance is worth the read if you just want, if you just want to like imagine this alternate world where everyone has what they need and we're not poisoning the earth and like the government isn't actively trying to run us all into the ground. I loved how hopeful this was. I'm struggling with hope right now, I guess is what I'm saying. Then the one I think you should read if you want a cozy, reflective, not stressful time, I think Ordinary Time is the one to pick for that. If you want a book that is going to give you a primer, a little bit of a primer on Palestine before you like deep dive into that topic, I think The Message is a good springboard. But definitely like read a specific nonfiction about Palestine and how Israel has treated Palestine after you read this. Like, this is not comprehensive, but this is a good springboard into the pool. So yeah, overall, this was really great nonfiction. This is a lot of nonfiction for me to read in a month. But I still have one more nonfiction on my TBR for this month, but it's an older title, so not including it in this video. I'm really feeling called to nonfiction right now in a way I normally am not, but I'm really enjoying all the nonfiction that I'm picking up. I've said before, and I'll say it again, I wish my picker for fiction was as good as my picker for nonfiction is, because I pick great nonfiction for myself, and I wish I had the same success rate with my fiction books. But anyways, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching and spending your precious time with me. I hope you found something that you're excited to read in this video. If you want to leave an emoji to let me know you made it to the end. It's harder when it's nonfiction. I guess let's do an earth emoji for Abundance. And like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll talk to y'all in the next one. Bye!